episode 57 of the Run Fast podcast. Solo today, short and sweet. Just a bit of a wrap up, my own training for the week, how things are going, how to stay motivated, and some of the issues we face when we're either getting back into running or we've had a bit of a break or we've had an injury potentially. So as I've mentioned before, I had a very long year, a very long career as a sprinter, and more recently I've got back into, I'll call it hybrid training because I still do both weight training and running. And I've got back into longer running, and obviously you long runners out there and ultra runners are going to laugh at me, but obviously the goal was always to get back and run a comfortable 10K. And then I entered in a high rocks race, which got me motivated even more to get my running fitness back up and, still combine my strength with it. I suppose when I was younger, I would have been considered a hybrid athlete back then when I played Australian rules football, given the fact that I could run substantial, for a substantial period of time, 2 hours playing football, and you had to have a lot of strength to play that game. You're tackling and wrestling quite a lot. And also you have to have a lot of speed. So you're doing these, very short sprints, and very, very similar to a lot of this hybrid training where it was all about an aggressive sprint, tackle somebody, you're basically then jogging very slowly to recover and then have to do it again. And this is just, over and over again, particularly if you're more of one of what they would call back then the on-ball players. So that was kind of my training anyway. Now it's become the word, we've given it a word now with hybrid athlete, which controversially some people don't like, some people do like. And I think it was an interesting word. And I think it does, it has some validity in the market where it does describe a lot of athletes. I think, if you look at people like Nick Bear, who's put himself out there as a hybrid athlete, it's a classic. The guy is actually a big unit. I think he's weighing in at around 90 kilos. Extremely strong, and he's still pumping out 60 plus miles of running per week, and I think he's run a sub 240 marathon. So I think some of these guys now really are truly hybrid athletes. There's not going to be too many guys that can run sub 240 and at 90 kilos and still be moving the type of weights that some of these guys are doing around. So it's pretty impressive, and I think it's a great way to train, particularly if you're not an elite athlete. If you're obviously, in that next category where you're elite, then it's very different. You become very specialized. But I think for most people, it's keeps things interesting. Definitely great as you get older because it keeps your cardiovascular fitness up, which is super important. We now know there's lots of studies coming out around VO2 max, how important it is from a longevity and aging point of view. Brady Homer, who I interviewed a little while ago, wrote a really good article about that, and he's a bit of a VO2 max specialist. If you want to go and look him up or listen to a podcast we did a couple of weeks ago. And we also know that keeping muscle mass on as we age, which definitely becomes more difficult, it's part of my problem, is a very important thing, to prevent falls and, still allow us to do those things that we want to do. The simple things in life, like getting up off the sofa and getting in and out of the car. But for most of us out there, it's just, I think the variety of training is what I enjoy the most, of still getting in the gym and still doing some of these high rocks type sessions that I'm doing. And I think high rocks is going to grow into the future because it is bringing competition to the masses where you can go and test yourself. I've just entered the Melbourne High Rocks, which have just opened up recently, but I'm going down to Melbourne to do it as a doubles event with one of my best friends. He is quite a good runner. He's got a shoulder injury at the moment, which I've just found out he needs shoulder surgery. So not too sure how he's going to go with the burpees. Looks like I'll be doing most of those and the wall balls, which are my two worst stations, I suppose. Well, the two hardest stations for me last time was the wall balls and the lunges. So I think the lunges I'll be a little bit better with now, so I'm running so much more. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about, combining these two into your week, but also how to stay motivated for a lot of people getting back into running. And I'll touch on, over the years as a sprinter, I saw so many people make the mistake where, I suppose they were sprinters when they were younger. First of all, they forget that was 20 years ago and that you're not that same person. A lot of things in life have changed. They got busy, had a family, whatever it is. They've come back. They want to get back to the track. And then normally in too much of a hurry to get better. They turn up to the track. They're amongst a bunch of other good athletes. In our case, we had a lot of very good masters athletes, and people want to be on the same level very quickly because they know when they were younger, they were potentially better than those athletes. And they make two mistakes. They try and progress too fast. They get injured, and normally that's the end of them. Or they just don't make the time and prioritize training again and then have a longer term plan. They think it's going to come back really quickly. They don't get that fitness back in that short period of time, and they end up giving up. And that's very easy to do. And both those, I think, are a real thing. So I think it's all about when you're getting back into fitness or if you're getting back into running, it's so easy to try and do too much too quickly, get injured, and then fall away. I fell into that when I got back into more longer running, my first few outings, and I'm talking about purely just spending 10, 15, 20 minutes on my feet. I started to get low back soreness, calf injuries, and I thought, oh, this is it. I can't do this. My days are done. But I got on top of that and I progressed just very, very slowly. I would literally go out and walk hills and, just up and down a local hill sometimes, and then just, try and do the limited amount of time on my feet and just progressed every day, just a little bit each day. And slowly but surely it sort of, my running got better and better. And now I'm, running 4 to 5 times a week and, can comfortably go out and run a 10Ks and do some good intervals and so forth. I wish I had persevered and started early because my journey at the moment, I'm loving running again. I started a few years ago up in the mountains in Colorado. I found it extremely challenging at 2,500 meters, and I didn't really look forward to it, but I had a good friend up there who was a great runner and would drag me out. But I wish I had persevered because, like many things in life, it's the journey, it's the struggle. Once you get past that part of the struggle and you get into that more intermediate part where you're still not great at it, but it's becoming easier and you start to enjoy it, it's the best part of it. And I think for me, that's been the case in a lot of things in life. And I'll just sidetrack quickly with a quick little story. I didn't start skiing until I was in my early 30s, and I really wanted to become a more proficient skier. And eventually I went and lived in the mountains, and suppose I fulfilled that goal or that dream. But I recall being in, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, being on the mountain, and I was on the chairlift next to an 80-something-year-old Australian guy. I was just visiting Colorado at the time. I wasn't living there. And we were just chatting about he'd been going out there for many years, been skiing for 50 years or maybe longer. He lived down in the mountains in Australia. And he said to me, I said, oh, I wish I was a better skier. I'm still only an intermediate skier and I want to be more advanced. And he said, son, don't be in a hurry to actually become better. When you get to the top of anything, it just becomes a little bit boring. It's that journey and that struggle in the middle that you enjoy the most. And that makes all the end of it, so much more worthwhile. But once you become really good, it's like, oh yeah, you go out and ski around. And I can really understand that, I still don't get bored skiing, but I definitely don't get as much out of it as I used to when it was that struggle, even though I used to get frustrated. And I recall going out with friends on the mountain and, I'm trying to help them learn some new techniques and skiing and powder, whatever it may be. And they get so frustrated, but you see the enjoyment, after a few days when they finally have that one powder run or, they go over their first 3 moguls. And I think the same is with running. It's always the journey. And I know we hear that all the time, but we need to remind ourselves that it is that process that we go through that's the most enjoyable. And then when you get to test yourself in a race, or you set yourself a marathon or a 10K or a high rocks, whatever it is, and you get to complete that, you reflect back on all the hard days during training. And often the event is actually much easier than the training, but it's the training part that we enjoy, and that's along the way. So I think for most of us, what we need to do is not be in a hurry. And I think that's a mistake that I've made in the past, particularly in other aspects of life. But I think we're always in a hurry. We want to be so far down the track so quickly. You've got to set yourself longer time frames. It's amazing what you can actually achieve over 2 or 3 years if you're consistent, and be patient. I think being patient and putting in the effort and looking after your body so you don't have these setbacks, which often is why people give up, is super important. So I think for beginners, it's all about time on the feet. I'm not too sure if you've heard that saying before, but when I got back into running, I went over to see my physio, and the first thing he said to me, he said, Rod, don't worry about the speed, don't worry about the distance. He said, just spend time on your feet. And if that means you've got to walk a bit, you jog a bit, just get time back on your feet and get your body conditioned, recondition your tendons, recondition your muscles, and your cardiovascular system will slowly just build up with it. And I think it was really important advice. I was just in a hurry. I wanted to go back where I was when I was 25. I wanted to be able to run the same way, and I just couldn't. But slowly but surely, I'm progressing again. My speeds, again, I'm in a little bit of a hurry. I want them to come down quickly, but now I've settled into this rhythm and I'm just enjoying running. I go out and run around Sydney in the mornings, and it's so nice. And I recall over the years, the one thing I've loved doing when I've traveled is running around a new city. And it's funny, every day I often take a different track around Sydney. And this morning I ran through the city itself. Normally I run around the water's edge and around past the Opera House, but I ran down through the city, and it's just nice. It's just a bit of a change. The shops aren't open. There's a few workers out, lining up at the construction sites, and you see different sights and sounds. I think once you get to that level where you can go out and run for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, you just enjoy it very differently. But be patient is the big thing. And if you're just getting started, just remember it's about time on the feet. Don't worry about the distance, about the pace, and enjoy that process. I don't want to drag on too much today. It's just a very short and sweet, just a quick reminder that enjoy the journey. Nothing comes, super fast and without some sort of effort. And you've just got to put that time in and enjoy the process. Have a great week and see you next time.